The next item is number 2, an application for a certificate of appropriateness at Governor's Island, Building 109 in the Governor's Island Historic District, docket number 16-2967, Block 1, Lot 10, and this is a utilitarian-style storehouse originally built in 1918 and reconstructed in 1945. The application is to demolish the building.
Please note that Commissioner Devonshire is recused from this matter.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Carly Vaughn, Preservation Staff. This is an application to demolish Building 109, which is a utilitarian-style warehouse. Here's Building 109. It's located in the northern portion of the Governor's Island Historic District, and the building is currently in a state of structural disrepair. And Leslie Couch, the President of the Trust for Governor's Island, is here to walk you through the proposal.
Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see many of you again. Thank you for having us, and I know that everyone has copies of the presentation, so I think without further ado, I'll go through that and obviously take any of your questions and comments. I think the last time that I was here was back in 2012 when the Commission reviewed and approved the plan for the new public spaces in the Historic District. And you can see some of those, obviously the ones on the left and the right are outside the Historic District, but Claire Kelly, who is here with me, my colleague, works very closely with LPC staff, and we've been to LPC and other matters, including the fit out of the New York Harbor School, which has been open for over 3 years, the Spaceworks Artist Studio. We're here every year working with staff on temporary public access. Those of you who go back in time may remember the demolition of the Super 8 Motel quite some time ago, Building 148, and then the removal of a brick path to preserve some historic trees. We have been hard at work. For those of you who haven't been out in the island recently, we did the second phase of stabilization throughout the Historic District. As you're aware, not counting the structures and landscape under the ownership and responsibility of the National Park Service, we have 52 contributing historic buildings, and we spent about $46 million on masonry stabilization, wood siding, porch restoration, painting, shingle roofs, slate roof, and the rehabilitation of Building 110, which has been used both by our visitors for restrooms as well as the home of the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council Artist Studios. So the Historic District has received quite an enormous amount of public investment. And this gives you a sense, obviously, for those of you who haven't been recently, not winter, but of course the Great Arch of Liggett Hall before the park was built, and the diverse array of buildings that are in our care, Nolan Park, Colonel's Row, this is the Governor's House, and this is Building 140, which is immediately to your left as you exit the ferry at Swasson's Landing. This is Building 109 at Swasson's Landing. What you see around the building should be familiar to you because you reviewed and approved it in renderings, and it remarkably looks exactly like the renderings. This is the work of Pentagram, Michael Beirut, who was here with me the last time, who worked in collaboration with Adrian Poisa and the West 8 team to design a highly functional system of wayfinding, and really, most importantly for us, welcome to the island. And we typically now welcome about 8,000 to 10,000 people a day on the weekends. So that serves their important purpose, and the ramp winding around it provides ADA access for visitors who require that. This gives you a sense both of the location of the building in question, which is, as I mentioned, at Swasson's Landing, and then the complete plan for the transformation of the island. And again, we haven't been here to talk to you about the demolition of non-historic structures, but all of this is now open to the public, and the hills are under construction, and the non-contributing buildings on the western shore are no longer with us. This is a great view that I hadn't seen before, not from a drone, of the site in question. So obviously, if you come on the ferry, these are the historic gantries. You reviewed and approved the use of our font to welcome people. There is Building 109, which we'll get into, and Building 110, which I mentioned, which has received substantial investment along with our other historic structures. Whoops, did I go too fast? Building 109 is adjacent to Swasson's Landing, and this is typically how this space is now used. And as I mentioned, this was previously reviewed by you in 2012, and looks exactly like what we told you it would look like. This gives you a sense, again, looking at the building, this is a protective fence, the west facade, the east facade. This building was constructed in 1945. It's what's known as a utilitarian building. There had previously been a wood structure. It had been used for storage and office space, and it has not been occupied or used since the Coast Guard used it prior to their departure from the island in 1996. We are proposing the demolition of the building because of structural failure. And we'll go into more detail so you can see both the work we've done to understand and attempt to remedy the failure, as well as the need to demolish. Just important context, this building was constructed outside the periods of significance that are outlined in your commission designation report. There is no cost-effective strategy, and there really have been no adaptive reuse prospects that would involve investment in the building to address either its immediate or long-term needs. But we'll go into that in more detail. For those of you who were not on the commission back in the 90s, this is actually the periods of historic significance, period of fortification, obviously when the 3 forts were constructed, and a couple of our buildings, the transition when it became a military post, the Army headquarters post, and then of course the land acquisition following this period when the landfill was added. Again, remembering this was the original water line of the island, this is all the landfill, and McKim, and White, of course, constructed this building as well as the hospital. The buildings highlighted here, which include the building in question, are the buildings that in that report were noted as outside the period, and of course we are not here to discuss the other buildings in red. We're only concerned with this building, which is experiencing structural failure. I think it's also important to underscore that this is not a unique building type. Its sort of distinguishing features, a double gable roof. This is another building on the island, Building 107, which is an older building in a period of historic significance that has the same building feature, roof type. There are a number of utilitarian-style buildings in the district, which we've highlighted with stars on this map. You can see, obviously, utilitarian is a broad style, so all of these buildings are considered utilitarian. They range, of course, in age and previous use. Additional utilitarian structures that are protected and have received substantial investment. This building is a 1-story high rectangle, about 50 by 130. It has wood sheathing. Don't ask me what a stick purlin is, that's why Claire is here. And then, of course, stud walls, and there's a central gutter with downspouts. We have done quite a bit over the last several years in attempts to stabilize this building. We actually went in and took out all of the interior partitions. We mothballed it, and when we initially saw more significant failure during last winter, I guess, as you may recall, quite a severe winter in this region on Governor's Island, we commissioned 3 surveys by engineers, including one we reached out immediately to Peg Green and the Landmark Conservancy staff and worked with them so that one of those studies was actually commissioned by the Landmark Conservancy. And then we also, of course, have been consulting with both LPC staff and SHPO staff on these analyses, as well as the requests that we have before you today. We priced the structural stabilization options. None of them provided really anything more than short-term stability. So, and those were not considered cost-effective. I thought it was appropriate to just reference we have done 2 fairly broad RFPs. One fairly recently, we received responses in 2013, and there was no interest identified, even among the proposals we did select for an adaptive reuse and investment in this building. So Claire may answer some of these particular questions around the building structure, but these images and this description gives you a sense of why the engineers concluded that the building is at risk of structural failure. The wood sills are deteriorated, the wood stud walls not connected, about half of the truss is deteriorated, and of course this, you can see the dip in the ridge, so it's quite visible when you're on the island. Claire's window, I think she took this picture from her window practically. We have been visually monitoring the building as well as working with our facilities management team. So you can see, again, some of those symptoms of the structural failure. And then again, going into the building, which we did as part of our analyses, more evidence of the challenges that this building faces, in somewhat due in part to the original construction method, as you can see here. But that is the state of the building. To give you a sense of context of what this would look like with the demolition, so we simply show a rendering here of a simple pad, and obviously if there was any proposal for either sustained temporary or a permanent structure to replace that building, we would of course be back here. We have at the present time obviously no plans and have not had any discussion about what might go in the building's stead, but that gives you a sense of again, being able to see this is building 108, actually our office building, which of course is a contributing building. So it does open up that facade of the building, which is currently not visible. But of course, and then here is the National Park Service. This sidewalk is part of the National Monument. And again, this just to refresh your memory, gives you a sense of the structure.
Leslie, just, we visited you, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Were we in that building, or were we in the office building behind it?
You were in the office building. We've actually never been in building 109.
Yeah.
Because of the challenges it's actually faced for a number of years.
You didn't want to risk us being in that.
So Leslie, so the, if cleared, then the new pad would be elevated, right? Because you're still taking the ramp up to that area and the stairs.
Well,
Is that right?
It would be at the grade of the current
Of
pad.
it-
So yes, this is elevated simply because of the grade of the road.
Right.
But we're not doing anything in where the building stood.
Right, but would there be I mean, what's on the other, go back to the other slide where it shows the ramp?
Yeah, so
The other ramp.
This
Yeah,
is,
sorry,
that is the ramp.
the other image.
Uh,
Oh, sorry, you had it, there. That
This one,
that
right?
one, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you just have the,
It'll be flat.
Yeah, it would be a big flat instead of
that.
here, so the ramp would provide ADA access to that space.
flat.
So that sidewall would still remain.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That is a new, just to clarify, this sidewall and this
Yes.
ramp are new.
That's what I'm
And they
asking.
were
Okay.
approved by the commission as part of the Park and Public Space Plan. And they were required in order to provide ADA access because of the grade of the road, the original road here. There was not another measure that we could take.
Could you just point out where Building 107 is? Is that on the other side of,
Could we go to the site map? Go ahead.
because that's the other one, which
Right,
is a
it's the
gabled,
same,
the
yeah.
double gabled roof, right? And it's similar.
So building 107 is right there?
Yeah, you got it.
This one? This one, right?
Okay.
That right here.
All right.
Yes, so then the building in question is here, and building 107 is here, and that is building 108, our office.
Are there other questions? Any other questions? All right, we received a resolution from Community Board 1, and they recommend that LPC approve this project to demolish the building, 109 on Governor's Island. Any speakers on this item? Okay. All right, I think the commission always faces with some trepidation historic districts where there's a demolition of buildings that have been identified, in this case utilitarian. But I think the commission should view this in sort of the larger context of the plan for Governor's Island, and that includes significant restoration and investment in buildings that are elevated to a level that is much higher than this particular building. I think they have identified the reasons that this may be appropriate to demolish this building, given that it was constructed or reconstructed in 1945, a period where, in fact, the historic district's raison d'etre is not related to. They've talked about 4 phases of development, and this is not one of them. I think they've shown a map which identifies where the buildings really should be preserved, and I think they've also been able to represent to us that there's some real logistical issues with trying to mothball this building, maintain it, given that it has very, very limited use for readaptation. So I think if we look at this in this larger context, then I think demolition of the building appears appropriate. Are there other comments? Yes?
I agree with everything you said. I'm just curious, is there a landing building? When visitors come to the island and there they are, is there an interior space for them to do stuff? Or are you imagining that this will be a future site for that and new construction, or?
It's a very good question. Actually, in our original planning for the park, we included a couple of structures, and in fact, adaptive reuse of Building 140. But we found with the use of the island, that basically when people come to enjoy a beautiful island, they actually don't want to go inside first.
Really?
So, yes, so we have not, in this phase of the island, we do have in Building 110 an interpretive information about the island that is always open when we're open to the public. But we've relied a lot on mobile food, and we have bathrooms in that structure. So you can go indoors to use the bathroom and ATM, as well as interpretive information. But we actually found that visitors were not as interested, so we made our investment in other stabilization measures and the construction of parking public space.
Okay.
All right. Are there any concerns then? Otherwise, we can take this to a vote. John, would you like to read that, please?
In the matter of docket number 162967, Governor's Island Building 109 in the Governor's Island Historic District, the application is to demolish the building. I recommend approval, finding that while the building is identified as a contributing structure within the Governor's Island Historic District designation report, Building 109 was fully reconstructed in 1945 after the final major building campaign on the island, and therefore does not represent any one of the 4 major periods of development on Governor's Island. That Governor's Island has been characterized by the construction and demolition of structures as the military base developed. That Building 109 is a relatively simple utilitarian-style building in terms of materials and design, and there are a variety of more architecturally distinguished utilitarian-style buildings within the district which will be maintained. That the double-gabled form will be preserved in a similar utilitarian-style building in the district, which is Building 107. That Building 109 was not well-constructed when it was rebuilt and is currently in a state of critical structural disrepair. That this historic district consists of a campus of unoccupied buildings with regular maintenance and restoration needs, and the demolition of the building will help preserve the entire campus. That the concrete slab foundation will be maintained, preserving a sense of the building's original footprint, while providing additional open space adjacent to the welcome wall and Soissons Landing, and that the proposed work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the Governor's Island Historic District.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This application's been approved.